hello. How are we doing? Not sure if anyone's here right now, so we're just gonna chill out for a little bit. 9 watching. We got a big nine audience. Not many people. That's fewer than normal. So we'll just hello Aiden. How's it going? We will just start off fucking about on a tune until folks start filtering in, and then we'll get the wine kicked out. Got this fucking thing going on here. Hello Charlie, how are you doing? Listening to the loop. We'll have a wee bit of the play for the loop before we get it. Was it worth it, John? Was the soup worth it? Hello Anrel, how's it going? We will get to the wine in a second. Do you think if we were live today, Karl Marx would like bubble tea? Yes, who doesn't? Seems like folk are filtering in. We might as well get started. So how are we all doing? Everyone all right? We'll get started on the wine just in a second. My hair is getting too long. I need to get it cut. I was thinking of getting it cut for last week. Hello Akira, how's it going? I'll get it cut this weekend sometime. Starting to look like a hippie. Everyone's filled with soup. Soup was a good choice. I was like, what am I going to eat tonight? I can't really be bothered doing much. I'll just have a nice wee soup. A nice wee vegetable broth. Not an exciting wine choice today. I think it's the same as last time. I can't remember. But I had a big expensive weekend last weekend. So I had to go for the cheapest option in Sainsbury's, which was this one, which was on £5.50 deal. The cheapest I could find that wasn't Yellowtail. Even I have my limits, and Yellowtail and Barefoot are my limit for wine. I've drank too much of that, and it's so bad. And I will not subject you to watching me drink that bad wine. So yeah, we've got the Clear Springs Sauvignon Blanc again. I think this is the same one that we had last time. Fresh gooseberries, I recognise that. A long, zesty finish, don't know what that means, but I recognise it. Yeah, and we've definitely had this one before. I can't remember if it's good or not. I think it's okay. I need to get back to the Aldi The Aldi's got a big selection of cheap wine. That's where I need to go back to. Long and zesty, exactly. I'm going to move closer to the microphone so it's not stretching all the way out. Aldi wine, Aldi booze is all great. I appreciate Aldi and its booze. I've not fully caught up with the Never After yet. I need to catch up. I'm on the episode where they're in the giant kingdom, and I'm just before when I was eating my sip there, I was just eating a bit of Dimension. It was eating with my eyes some Dimension 20. I was just watching some Dimension 20, just before we came on there, and I mean this season took me a bit to get into, but I'm fine. But I'm enjoying this season now. Yiffa's the best character. For anyone who doesn't have the compulsion to watch D&D TV shows, this stuff is not for you. Aldi can't sell wine around me. Why not? The Aldi wine is I got a wine from Aldi a few weeks ago that was like £3, and it was really nice. It was just a really good piece of wine. It was really, man, my head's all over the place today. This whole week I've been super foggy. I've been super foggy because I got a migraine on like Monday night. One of the really bad ones that makes your body and face go numb. And the whole Tuesday I was just out. My head, it's not even the pain, but like brain fog. I couldn't think properly. I was just like, I was out for the count. And I've just finally started getting out of it yesterday, but haven't quite. Still a bit foggy, still a bit kind of not quite 100%. So we'll see how this stream goes. Hopefully nobody tests me too hard, because my thoughts are not there 100%. Yeah. Stores can't sell alcohol higher than 5% in grocery stores in my US state. Oh, I remember that sort of nonsense. That was annoying. That's annoying. I remember that having problems with, people would have to go to the liquor store when I was in the US, and you couldn't just get someone to buy it at the grocery store. People would have to make car journeys to the liquor store, which was annoying. Because the Aldi and Lidl brands of like booze are pretty good. Like, not in like an ironic, oh, we drink some Aldi stuff. The cat's trying to get in, but it's too early for cat action. It's like not even ironically good. It's just good, and it's nice and cheap. Although one of the main problems with the wine supply near where I am is that the only shop is a Sainsbury's local, which is not helpful. It's not helpful to have that be the only shop in walking distance. The next closest shop is an Asda, which is 40 minutes away, which is not great. So if you want to go to the shop, any decent supermarket, you've got to get a train somewhere, which is really annoying. London, a great city for connectivity. This is quite nice wine. Had quite a big weekend last weekend. Went back up to Scotland. Saw my parents, saw my family, saw old friends I've not seen in a while, old university friends. Went to a ceilidh, which was great fun. Very sweaty. A very sweaty ceilidh. In Glasgow. Went to Mango, where we used to go all the time. Mango in Glasgow, great times. And spent way, way, way too much money. So now we're back on the £5.50 wine, doing our best. Try to get a video out soon. Went to see the Doctor Who exhibition at Edinburgh Museum, which was very good. A fun wee exhibition, but I had a weird thing, where I don't know how this had happened. They had like the signs and the way that the sign, like the things that the signs refer to, the numbering system was totally fucked up. So you'd be like reading number 4 and be like, oh, number 4, that must be ahead of me. But no, number 4 was, it went like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 on the signs, and then it went 1, 4, 6, 5, 2 on the displays, which was weird. Otherwise, it was quite fun. Saw David Tennant's new costume for the upcoming episodes. That was good. Pleasant day in the Blue Ridge Mountains. Nice. Blue Ridge Mountains. That just makes me think of, there's an old Laurel and Hardy movie, called Laurel and Hardy Way Out West, where they sing the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, and Laurel sings really deep, and then Hardy hits him with a shoe or something, and he starts singing really high. But just remember the song, in the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, on the trail of the lonesome pine. I used to watch that with my dad. Not to just launch into something about the Blue Ridge Mountains. Laurel and Hardy Do America. I think it was Way Out West. It might be a part of a bigger movie, but the specific one that they had was Laurel and Hardy Way Out West, and it had the one where they do the fun little dance as well, and then there's a part where Laurel is like, Laurel and Hardy Do America. What was Do America? Was that Beavis and Butthead Do America? Was that Beavis and Butthead Do America? But there was a bit where Laurel lit his thumb like a lighter, which was also very good. Beavis and Butthead. I remember Beavis and Butthead Do America, another feature of my childhood, something that probably shouldn't have been watching when I was a child. But Beavis and Butthead Do America, that was great. Very much the Laurel and Hardy of the 90s. Fuck it. I'm sitting with that. Beavis and Butthead, the Laurel and Hardy of the 90s. Who's not saying that? Who's not saying that Beavis and Butthead are the Laurel and Hardy of the 90s? People who don't know the truth, obviously. Yeah. So I just finished the script for the next video, which is on. I'm pushing the EA video because I wanted to do a bit more research. Because I was too angry and wanted to get more stuff done in it. So I've made what was going to be a more blog style, less research heavy video on the recent Reeves and Mortimer. Yeah, Reeves and Mortimer. Yeah, that's a good shout. So I was planning on doing more sort of blog style, less research heavy video on the transphobic Turning Point far right protest that was in South London the other week. But it's ended up being like a 4,000 words solid, like pretty in-depth video essay on transphobia on the far right. So yeah, we're gonna try and film that either tomorrow or Saturday, and out for next week. But that's drafts written for that. I'll go over it early tomorrow morning and try and make sure it all makes sense. But it's on it's draft scripts on Patreon now, so that's fun, I guess. I might be implying that all transphobes fuck dogs. Or at least the ones that were at the Turning Point rally. But we'll see. We'll see how that turns out. Hopefully it'll be interesting enough. I tried to write it over the past few days when I had extreme brain fog, so it will probably need a fair amount of editing when I get down to it tomorrow morning. But that's what's coming next week. Turns out that lots of transphobes are quite like Nazis. Who'd have thought it, eh? You know, I'm not saying anything that could get me litigious action against me. I will not say anything on stream about Ian Austin. My lawyers have advised me not to pick up on that joke. Lawyers, is that? Yeah, the lawyers have advised me not to say anything on that joke. I have a lawyer just in the corner the whole time, just advising me whether or not to publicly defame notoriously litigious politicians on the internet. Hello, Andy Drew. How's it going? My cat is my lawyer. That'd be the worst fucking lawyer around. That cat has no focus. One thing to another. What he could do is release the cat near a litigious politician and watch as he bites his leg. Has the lawyer been there the whole time? Lawyer's always there. Every time I'm on stream, he's just there. Part of his contract is that he will never appear on camera. But he's always there advising me not to say things that could get me sued by litigious politicians, especially if I'm about to make a video on transphobes. He's very comfortable. He's got his own bottle of wine. His bottle of wine's nicer than mine. He probably ethically shouldn't be advising me while he's also drinking a bottle of wine, but you know, what's a comrade to do? He's there, and so anytime we both get more drunk, that's when the libel starts to slip through the net later on. You know, when I was in Glasgow this weekend, one of my friends revealed to me that he doesn't watch the streams, but sometimes he will watch the recordings of them that are on YouTube, not the whole way through, just the start and the end, because he enjoys watching me going from perked up and eloquent to slouched over and slightly less so. And just enjoys watching me transform, because this is a guy who's seen me in the worst states I've been in. Although neither of my friends that I saw believed me that I hadn't been sick in over 10 years until last September. That shows how well they know me. But yeah, that's he revealed that to me over the weekend, and I was like, that's fair. That's a fair thing to do. I wouldn't expect you to watch 4 hours of me fucking about. You've spoken to me too much in real life that you can't really... You got to make your own entertainment of watching me sort of slouch down from the start to the end of a stream. Too real, yeah. Alright, let's get another track going before we figure out what to talk about and what to do on this stream today. Sorry, I think I've gone out of tune. Give me a sec. Okay, back to it. better than what we were doing before anyway. Yeah. Any beef with what's happening on Twitter? I don't know what's happening on Twitter, I'm afraid. I've been spending less time on Twitter of late. Less time scrolling anyway, because it's been sucking too much of life, and I think it's dying. So I'm not aware of any beef or discourse going on beyond. I think the last thing I saw was the Communist Party being transphobic, which is, old news. The Communist Party of Great Britain, obviously, being transphobic, which is, classic stuff for them. They've been doing their old transphobia for a while. I think it's what a absurd view of materialism that they have. It wasn't tomato soup, Harker, and hello Harker. It was vegetable soup. It was like a broth. The Communist Party of Great Britain's idea of materialism is things that you can hold in your hand. So for their sort of fucked up, vulgarized notion of materiality, sex is stuff you can hold, and gender is an ideology, which is therefore ideational, which is therefore bourgeois, none of which follows from an actual Marxist position. Because, as we all know, Marxism is the study of the social relations of capital and labour. Like, to simplify it in a very, 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 very simplified way. And if anyone's noticed, you can't actually hold social relations in your hand. You can't touch them. They are material in the sense that they influence, they dictate the conditions of the world, not because you can hold them. So the Communist Party of Great Britain has no idea what it's talking about. They're just transphobes. Vulgar materialists, irrelevant beyond whatever discursive impact they're going to lend the actual enemies of the working class, being billionaire fucking hate mob founders or figureheads like J.K. Rowling. So that's the only discourse I've seen is regarding them, and it's nonsense. They're nonsense mongers, like a fishmonger but for nonsense. And it's long-standing stuff. They've always been like this, and they're part of the, like, there's a reason Caleb Maupin interviewed a head up. A high-up figure in the Communist Party of Great Britain, and it's because they share similar sort of vulgarized bullshit understandings of Marxism. They're from this similar sort of milieu. Hello, Katie Marshall. How much have you missed? Not all that much. We've been going for about half an hour. We're still on the first glass of wine, so we're doing all right. Somebody asked how long I've been playing guitar. About 20 years now, so a long time. Oh no. Oh, I hope your dog's okay, Foxy fanboy. I hate seeing a sad dog. Jyoti Bar? I can't remember, Harker. I can't. I'm so bad. I'm bad with the names of my friends, never mind. On, like, irrelevant transphobes in Britain's irrelevant Communist Party. There's some similar crossover. The Morning Star, one of the sort of socialist newspapers in the UK, which has also produced a whole bunch of just transphobia within the same sort of milieu. It's something I've not found time to talk about in the upcoming video. I focus more on the liberal transphobias, but there is a strong strand of Marxist or socialist transphobia Welcome to the cooler gang, Katie Marshall. I still don't know what that means. I think it's something good. But welcome. Cheers. I hope you intended to do that. Yeah, there's a strand of like a vulgar Marxist, socialist feminism specifically, which rests on that sort of vulgar materialism of sex is material and gender is ideological. So therefore, something or other, the notion of transgenderism is ideological, which is like, I don't even think that point flows from the premise, and I don't even necessarily think that because something is ideological, I think what they mean is ideational in the sense that it drives history, but like, I don't even think within a Marxist framework something being ideological is necessarily bad. And there's some like notion that it's bourgeois, which, you know, there's no evidence for that. But it's an existing trend of transphobia of the Marxist socialist kind. It's the same premise as political lesbianism. There is some crossover with that, and it's not to say, because I know that there are people who are into political lesbianism who are very strong anti-transphobic activists, who firmly accept trans women as lesbians, but still come with a political lesbianism sort of strand. I still think that there's a tendency within that strand of thought, a strong tendency toward transphobia, which it probably should force anti-transphobic adherents to it to maybe reconsider the premises of their position. Hello, Mian. Yeah, there's some of the stuff that sort of comes out with like the transphobic, the way that like particular strands of transphobia attempt to run away from the implications of their arguments, the implications of their positions, whether that's running away from how close they are to far-right positions, how many Nazis fucking agree with them, or whether that is people who are into sort of political lesbianism, trying to escape from a degree of transphobia, and there's a connection between that, I think, and the way that William McCaskill argues in his book on long-termism, where he puts up like formations about like it's always morally correct. It's moral good to have a child, and he'll say that and follow up. A moral good to have a child, assuming the child is going to have a good life, and he'll say that he will know that simultaneously produces both pro-life and eugenicist implications in his arguments. And he will then say, of course, I am not saying that women don't have the right to choose what to do with their bodies, or I am not saying I'm not following a eugenicist path, I am simply saying that this is a moral good. And it's like running away from the implications of your argument and running away from your reasoning. How do you know a child is going to have a good life? Well, quite. He has a bunch of like over-rationalist reasons for how to categorize a good life and whether or not it's going to be morally good to have that life. It's fucked up. But there's like I think if you've laid out an argument and then you have to clarify exactly what you're not saying, but not specifying why that's the case. Like, if you're laying out an argument and you say, of course, this doesn't mean, because the premises of the argument don't then lead to these like alternative premises, that's fine. That's clarifying the content of your argument. But if you're saying, having a child is always a moral good, but this doesn't necessarily mean that we should infringe the rights of women's bodily autonomy or do a bunch of eugenics, but then not dealing with that in the premises of the argument. Then what you're doing is running away from your reasoning, and you should then reconsider your entire ideology, which is not something William McCaskill or these TERFs ever do, because they're more committed to their liberalism, their bigotry, than they are to any sense of justice, really. Yeah, Foxy Femboy, it's so much of it is so deeply ableist, and it's really fucked up. There's no reconciling with that within McCaskill's book. And you can see this. It's very much a legacy of the Peter Singer style of argumentation. Deeply ableist, deeply eugenicist. No reckoning with what that actually means politically, what it means for the lives of actual people. He's so concerned with the long-term future that he's not concerned with the actual political implications of the words he's putting on the paper today for people's lives today. It's really bad. It's a bad book. The long-termism book. It's really bad. And that's some of the stuff that I'm looking to talk more about in the EA video. I want to delve into some of the epistemological heritages that are playing off of it, of effective altruism and long-termism are playing off of, and basically show how they come from a legacy of Cartesian colonial thought and epistemology, which then goes through social Darwinism and goes through into neoliberal reasoning, and show like that this is a coherent intellectual tradition which has deeply troubling and harmful implications for the world around it, rather than just saying fucking it's bullshit, because it is bullshit. Everyone knows it's bullshit, so it's good to see why it's also bullshit and why it's harmful bullshit as well. And sort of dive a bit more deeply into some of the stuff that Abby's video didn't quite get into, the epistemological traditions, and the sort of ableism of it as well. That's sort of plans. That's why I need to do a bit more research into that video. It's fucked. Aidan Sullivan saying, I remember an old-ass philosophy tube video where she briefly brushed on the idea of gender as a social relation in and of itself, similar to the gendering of labour for reproduction material conditions. Seems likely. It's very it's some good classic stuff. Feminism. It's a good classic stuff. Feminism. It's good. It's a classic bit of feminist sort of thought that gender is a social relation in and of itself. I think it's basically. I don't think it's a social relation in and of itself. I think it's a constituent part of class relations and labour relations. I wouldn't separate it off into a social relation of itself. I don't think anything exists in and of itself. Everything is inherently relational to other things and constituent parts of other things. And that's what being a good Marxist thinks. And yet, so there was a fun thing on Twitter. Was Rutger Bergman. Has anyone ever heard of Rutger Bergman? He's the Dutch historian, like sort of left liberal guy. Did his book Utopia for Realism, Utopia for Realists, and did like the rounds, talking about how billionaires should be taxed more. So, sort of your basic like left liberal stuff. Billionaires should be taxed, investment in infrastructure, UBI, things like that. Inoffensive stuff. He did a big thread talking about how degrowth is bad, is the worst thing. Degrowth is the worst thing that's happened to the left in ages. Now, in my books, the worst thing that's happened to the left is probably the constant onslaught of fucking existential crises that we're in. That's because the left is just people, right? And that's fucking people over. So that's probably the worst thing that happened to the left. He was like, yeah, the degrowth sort of thing that happened to the left. We actually need to grow. Your standard sort of nonsense stuff. Complete mischaracterizations of degrowth. No real actual research into it. Reading Utopia for Realists was my entry into left politics. I mean, I've never read it. I'm sure it's a perfectly serviceable book. Like I say, just some like standard left liberal sort of stuff. Limited but useful to some people. I think it's probably got its own value. So it was completely, but the stuff on degrowth he was talking about was completely misinformed, absolute nonsense. And someone brought to attention a previous thread he'd done about how the left keeps knee-jerk dismissing effective altruism out of hand, and I was like, oh, that's a cheek, isn't it? Getting mad at people dismissing effective altruism out of hand, an actual nonsense thing, and then completely dismissing out of hand degrowth, which has significant theoretical and empirical support and foundations, things that effective altruism simply does not have. And I just thought that was very annoying, and that's a sort of thing that shows you the limited nature of some of the left liberal stuff. They're much more willing to give effective altruists the time of day than they are to any sort of degrowth, which necessitates, if you're doing it properly, anti-imperialist overthrowing of capitalism. Of course, a liberal is not going to be into that. Oh yeah, I'll read out what Harker's nice summary of political lesbianism is: the strand of radical feminism which uses a strange interpretation of strict class structure and what should be a metaphor. Patriarchy as bourgeoisie, men as capitalism, women as proletariats. Through that strict literalism, it becomes that the labour of women is primarily sexual and social reproduction. That sexual reproduction is withheld as labour, leaving political lesbianism. Yeah. A good summary of it. Part of the main sort of the biggest issues with it are obviously that there's a big trend within it for biological essentialism, where because sexual reproduction obviously playing that role means that if you have women who do not sexually do not have wombs, then that's already like a failure on their part for not adhering to the specifics of political lesbianism, and it's led to a bunch of quite transphobic groups who follow that particular trend, that particular strain of thought. Again, not all of them. There are, but it's present in the thought. Thoughts about the coup in Burkina Faso? I've not seen enough to give any coherent thoughts, I'm afraid. Unless I can, I'm not going to fire off an opinion about it. I don't have much in the way of information on that yet. So I only just saw brief stuff about it. Inoffensive makes the entire Labour Party in the UK and the Democratic Party in the US panic when someone with those ideas becomes popular. Yeah, I mean, yeah. We've seen how a social democrat can cause a neoliberal political establishment to shit its pants. That's what they do. That's what they do. So yeah, that's the two bits of Twitter beef that I can think of the past few days. Whoever it was that asked about Twitter beef, that's the only stuff I've really been involved in. I can't really. Again, been trying to move away. Although I was trying to do some stuff on TikTok to try and build an audience there, because Twitter's dying, and it turns out TikTok might be dying as well. So that's fun, isn't it? The US is just panicking. The most milk toast change. Yep. The US is pushing through some extremely draconian and authoritarian technological regulation, which is quite fucked. After all the complaints and all the stuff about China being authoritarian, the US is putting forward some absolutely mad, extremely authoritarian technological regulation. John, what do you think of Hamza Youssef becoming the new leader of the SNP? I have 4 family members who are members of the SNP and got really fucking scared by Kate Forbes. Yeah, we can talk about that. I mean, it's a relief. Hamza Youssef is not. I mean, he's in the SNP. He's not good. But he's better than an arch right-wing, misogynistic, openly homophobic, fucking evangelical Christian Kate Forbes. So that was a relief. The relief is slight because it was a close race, not that many, and it was like 48 to 42%. But in terms of memberships, that's not a whole lot of votes between them, which is like really, really bad. It really what the relative success of Kate Forbes shows is that this notion of Scotland and the SNP as a broadly progressive force in Scotland is a sandcastle. It's based on very little foundation, and a new tide can come in and just sweep it away at any second. I don't think we've seen the last of that kind of extreme right-wing religious zealot in Scottish politics. I don't think Kate Forbes is going anywhere in any great hurry. You said authoritarian control about tech legislation in the chat hit a server error. Oh no, they're on to me. I think that I'm glad that Youssef won, or at least I'm relieved. Glad is a different feeling. I'm not glad because Youssef himself is not great. I also kind of think we're about to see a massive release of a bunch of Islamophobic tension in Scottish media, as Scottish media is going to be like all out Islamophobic on this guy, as they already were during the race, when they were asking him over and over again his positions on gay marriage and on gender recognition, despite the fact he'd been very clear that he supported both very much in the continuity sense of Nicola Sturgeon, but him being Muslim meant, we can't really believe that he would support these progressive reforms, when of course he did. He's from that wing of the party, he always was. But Kate Forbes was kind of let off more lightly. I think the next period of Scottish politics is going to be bad. bad. So I guess a relief, limited and mitigated by how bad things are probably going to end up getting. It should be a wake-up call for the Scottish left, however much that exists, which is not much, that the independence movement and the SNP are not vehicles for left-wing politics. Whether or not independence happens, whether or not you vote for it, that movement in itself is not a left-wing movement. It is. That's something I'm comfortable calling bourgeois politics. The independence movement. But the Scottish left needs to get its shit together. However it exists, which is not much. How are we doing, She Flew to the Moon? We were just talking about Scottish politics again. The election of a new Scottish First Minister. Let's get another wine in. Need to run and get some Marxism up in the place. Exactly. Let's do a new tune and then get a new wine in, actually. I'm iffy on that tune, so we'll see how long it lasts. It's a bit end credits that. I'm not we'll see how long that lasts. Not sure how much I like it. What have I missed? Teaching. Depressed and don't want to do homework. Fair enough. Just lots of teacher chat. I can't escape teacher chat. My whole family are teachers. I'll probably end up doing teaching at universities. Hopefully. Constant teacher chat. Not that I don't like it. I quite enjoy a good teacher chat. My brother just got a permanent job after like 2 years, which is good. Is my phone still in German? It's still in German. It causes some trouble sometimes. I had to do a bunch of fucking I had to put work emails on my phone. Annoyingly. I had to do it, and it meant because the phone wouldn't then allow me to have the same passcodes I had before for some reason. So I had to like change a bunch of stuff on my phone, passcodes and everything, and I had to try and navigate that with my phone in German. It took so long. My German's not good enough for that. Hello, JR Parkin. How are we doing? I think we're having a pleasant evening. Things are okay. We're about an hour in. We've only talked about some dark shit a few times. We're talking about teaching now. I'd be an awesome teacher. I hope so. That's basically all I'd like to do once I get a job. I'm more concerned about doing some good teaching than I am about fucking research output. But that's the sort of attitude that does not get you a job in academia. And so if anyone's watching, oh, the cat needs attention. Okay, let's get the cat in. Some cat for y'all. He's been causing trouble apparently, so he needs some attention. So here he is. Have you been lonely? YouTube videos previously great research and teaching. I mean, I think they're good evidence for my teaching. The research, maybe. Most of the YouTube videos that they're well researched in the sense that like, stop trying to chase bugs. They're well researched pieces of work, but they don't necessarily show that I'd be good at producing independent research. But they're good. They're good for showing that I'd be decent at teaching. I think good at presenting. Different kind of research for sure. Good writing practice as well. such a silly little animal. Just getting his wee hands stroked. Sure. God, yeah, he's purring up a storm right now. From his belly, for luck. Okay, sure. Go for this. This is normal. This is what a normal cat does. I bet we hold you like a wee baby. There we go. What he's looking for is things to destroy. He's looking to try and eat some plants, maybe attack a wee bug that's flying about. You think this cat is on the verge of doing something atrocious. I can feel it. He's not calm. He's not relaxed. He's on the verge of violence. And I can tell. He might look calm, but he's staring at something, and he's going to attack it. Normal behavior. There is no normal behavior. Look at his face. What do you want? Are you shushing me? I think he just shushed me. If you're good, you can stay in for a little bit while we chat. No wine for you, though. I watched. There was a video I watched recently of this Instagram account had a Russian blue that was exactly like this, exactly like Anton. Same face, made the same noises, sat on top of the fridge, and stared down in the exact same way. My God, you are shedding so much hair. Get your summer coat in already. Jesus. Oh, I guess what's that? I guess yeah, from since last time I saw I was here, I think I no, maybe not. Maybe did I last Wednesday? I think I'm not sure if I since last time I saw it, I went on stream. I think I've submitted a draft of the old PhD since then. Maybe that was before the last one. What are you doing? What is this? What are you doing? Falling on your face. Did I know that pet crows name their humans? I did not, but that is fascinating. God, crows are so good. My granddad used to have crows. Well, he had a crow, and then he had a series of other crows. He rescued a baby crow once, and then it lived with him for years. It used to like sit on his shoulder, sit on his head, peck at his hair like worms, and then eventually it flew off. And it used to come back and visit him sometimes. Like it didn't just fly off and disappear. It would come back and it would say hi. You'd be like, oh, the crow's back, and then he would like, people would start bringing him crows that had been found away from their nests, and he would raise them, and he raised I think about 3 or 4 different crows over a period of a few years that we'd all just like become really good friends with them. Some of them, they had different personalities, and they would come and go, and always return to see him again. You're falling Also, pigeons are far smarter than people realise. Apparently, we've been able to train them. Yeah, I know. I'm a big fan of pigeons. I know people don't like pigeons. I like a pigeon. Smart animals. I like the way they move. I like their funny little necks. Still working on the first draft of the first chapter. Just you're at the first chapters. I remember when I was reading back some of the stuff from that I'd written 2-3 years ago. I was like, fuck me. This shit is bad. So my advice would be not even to worry that much about your first draft. Oh my god, cat. Because you're gonna come back to it. What do you want? Oh, can you hear? I think you can hear my flatmate maybe going out of the room. So he's gonna start running. Oh, yep, there you go. I'll just let him out. Ah yes, Anan. You just missed the cat. You just missed the cat. We're talking about pigeons and crows. My god, that cat is hairy. Oh my god. It's a good thing I'm not terribly allergic to him. Fucking hell. Yeah, write it badly. Well, the best writing advice is to plan. I will stand by that forever. I know it's the most basic writing advice, but a good plan will sort out most of the issues with writing that you ever get. The only times I ever find myself stuck with writing is if I've not done a decent enough plan. And I remember listening to like a radio show when I was at school, and a guy was talking about how teachers had always told him to plan his essays before he wrote them. So before every essay, he would write out introduction, body, conclusion, and then was confused about how none of his plans would help him write, and thought people were lying to him about how helpful planning was, which I think is very funny. But no, a good plan is very much worth it. And that can change. You don't have to stick to a plan, but a solid. It's the piece of advice I give to everyone. And I think that's the same for like a bigger project, like a PhD as well. It was one of the first things my supervisor got me to do was a rough chapter plan, which changed, but it still gave direction to the early work, and it informed later work. And it gives you a sense that you know what you're going to do next. You've got this bit, you know what's coming next, and that's just helpful, I think. But for actual writing, don't worry about getting it right on the first time. Meeting in 15 minutes. Hate to see it, Foxy fanboy. Hate a meeting. Kilrooney, that fact makes me sad every time I hear it. I'm gonna change up the song because I'm not feeling it. I want something a bit cooler. This is a bit cheesy, this one. Good day, Ori of Crestalon. Good day. Sorry, I'm not on it today. I can't think of anything good. So I wasn't feeling that either. that'll do for now. I'm still not happy with it. I'm not on my game tonight, I'm afraid. Maybe something will come later on. I also realised that was slightly too loud. And I can only apologise. What's going on with everyone else? Anyone got anything that they'd wish to talk about? No. I'll let the music play to see if anyone's got any topics that they'd like to chat about. Yeah, there's so many great channels around. We've got some in the chat. Sinan for Twitch, if you want to watch some Twitch left-wing channels. Harker, of course, as well. Another great channel. Anrel was in chat earlier. Not sure if they're still here. So many great. Oh yeah, Mandalorian. Yeah, I could chat about a bit the Mandalorian. And Sinan was just on stream. Yeah. What's funny about The Mandalorian is that after watching what a Star Wars show could be with Andor, Alex the whole we could talk about Chicken Run sequel in a second. After the Andor show and what Star Wars could be, it's just not. It just does not compare well. It's fun. I like a lot about The Mandalorian. I think it's good as a fun sort of show, but there's definitely some like the last episode of The Mandalorian had introduced a mystery to the show, which should have been introduced in like the second or third episode. I don't know why they've waited till like the 5th episode of what I assume is 8 episodes to introduce like a major point of conflict for the show, and that maybe the Mandalorians broke out the main villain from the last series. It's like, yeah, why did you take this long? It feels like it's not well planned, and they're sort of confused about where to go. And it also kind of feels like they don't know what to do with the main character. He doesn't seem to be the main character of the show anymore. It seems to be the Andor has actual corporeal set and looks great. Yeah, Andor's like the best Star Wars thing I've seen in a long time. I mean, it might be the best Star Wars thing around. It's just fucking great. And yeah, and it's obviously Mandalorian isn't going to be as good as that, but it's still fun. And I like a fun show. I liked in the last episode the space pirates. That was very fun. I enjoyed that. But it's clear they have no idea what to do with the main character, since his emotional arc, what was clearly like planned, the emotional arc ended in the last series, and then they brought back, just as absurd, like they fully broke the show when they decided to bring back Baby Yoda to the Mandalorian on a different show. Like the main emotional point of the show was just like resolved off screen in a different, worse show, which is just like, it's just terrible. So that's sort of, there's less to actually talk about it. So that it, like, they at least shouldn't have brought back Baby Yoda for a series. Like, and it would have made sense to not bring it, and then like Mandalorian's lost his family, so he's going back to the big group because that's the only family he knows, and then he's torn between different worlds. It's like, yeah, that makes sense. That's a sort of solid emotional beat that you could have gone through for at least a series, but to resolve to resolve the main sort of emotional core of the show on a different show altogether is just absurd. Just absurdly stupid writing. Ricky, I would recommend watching Andor even if you haven't seen any other Star Wars. Because to be honest, you don't really need, like, if there's any Star Wars thing which you don't need any other Star Wars thing to really understand, it's probably Andor. You just go in and you're like, okay, there's space imperialism and there are the revolutionaries, and that's basically all you need to know. Star Wars wise going in. There's no like Force or Jedi stuff in Andor, and it's just fucking brilliant. It's just fucking good sci-fi. I would fully recommend just watching Andor. It was so good. What are my thoughts? Oh yeah, the new Chicken Run sequel. Well, I am nervous. I'm nervous about the Chicken Run sequel because obviously the original was so important to me. Mandalorian doesn't let you see Pedro Pascal's face as much as I'd like, so I don't know if it's worth it. I mean, that is an issue. The problem with, I think I think at least the first two series of Mandalorian are just really good. I think they're just fun sort of space western stuff. The third series has been a bit lacking of focus, I think. So far, it's had good moments, but not been great as a show so far. The last episode was really good, but again, it should have been way earlier in the series. I don't know why it wasn't. It's weird. But yeah, it doesn't let you see Pedro Pascal's face very much. The new Chicken Run, I'm nervous about. I hope that they still manage to pull off something good, something kind of something that I can make a video that's just as fun about. Obviously Chicken Run 2, there's going to be a video, whether it's good or bad. I just hope it's good, so I can make a joyful video about how fucking brilliant it is. That's just what I want, to make a video about how much I love Chicken Run 2. I just need that in my core. I don't even know where they're gonna go with it. I think it'll be fun. There's a Chicken Run sequel. I think it's due out this Christmas. Yeah, nervous about that. We'll see. You know what I did find out recently, which is interesting, was that Jenna Ortega from the Wednesday show hated everything about Wednesday, thought no one would watch it, hated doing it, and seemingly regrets doing it. Having to rewrite lines for the character. Said she was being really unprofessional and rewriting stuff and trying to fight against everything because they didn't understand what they were doing. And I think that's so interesting because it fits so closely with what my analysis of that show was in that video. Which is like, she was good in it, but it was not Addams Family shit, and it was bad for that. But it's interesting that she, who was clearly understood the character, was fighting against it and regrets doing it, and refused to do it a few times. And it was only after she heard Tim Burton was coming on, which when she took the job. Which I just gotta say, Jenna, we know Tim Burton's not good at this point. Keep up to date and don't be tricked again. But aside from that, she seems to have been fighting against everyone in the production, which I think is quite interesting. I thought that was quite an interesting thing to come out. Carl Urban in Dredd was fantastic. There isn't even much scope for chin acting in in The Mandalorian. It's all completely face covered. How was the soup? The soup was alright. It was just a bit of broth, bit of Scotch broth. It was nice. The wine is fine. It's a wine that I've had before. It was £5.50 on deal because we had an expensive weekend up in Scotland last weekend, so we need to live cheaply. The show was easy to watch but left me feeling weird after. Yeah, I mean, I got kind of bored when I was watching it the first time. First time I watched it through, I didn't even clock the worst line in the show, where the good colonizer ancestor says, "We lived in harmony with nature and the native," because I was just bored and wasn't watching it too closely. And it was only after I was watching it the second time through and preparing for the video that I was like, "Oh, good lord, that's what they did there. That was not good." The worst moment in the show was a torture scene with a hypnotist within 2 meters. Oh yeah. I didn't even clock that because at that point I was, again, bored. Yeah, Vexverity, that's the general consensus, I think, for me at least. Well, that was my opinion, and therefore it is the general consensus, was that the show was bad, but she was good in it. Which tracks with her rejecting a lot of the shit that they tried to make her do. Kind of sad as well, though. What else? Anything else I've been watching recently? You know what I have been watching? I've started watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer for the first time. Never watched it before. I'm just at the end of the second series now, and you've been talking about doing that video on Rome for a while, Tanan. Yeah, started watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, annoying people around me by calling it Buffandra, because Buffy's not a real name, is it? No one's called Buffy. But so it must be short for something. And that something is, in my view, Buffandra. So it's Buffandra the Vampire Slayer. Sorry, a 44,000 word script, Sinan. That's absurd. That's half of a PhD. General consensus. That's a good idea. You need to cut that shit down. Yeah, Buffandra the Vampire Slayer. So I'm enjoying a lot of it. It's quite interesting watching Buffandra from, like, in a post Joss Whedon kind of, not just his like horrendous abuse and like abuse of power and like terrible sexual ethics being exposed, but like in the general in the post sort of his general style becoming so mainstream through the Avengers, you can see the things that become problems with his type of writing in like microcosm early on in like Buffandra. So things like, at least early in the show where I am, they do a lot of things like pointing out how weird something is, but not actually dealing with it. So oh, the werewolf conversion camp thing in Wednesday was fucking weird. Yeah, that was fucking weird. Yeah, so the way that lots of Joss Whedon writing seems to go in Buffandra, and some of the comic writing, and a lot of it is good, is really good. But like you can see things like he'll point to something weird or strange. See you later, Sinan. Nice to see you. Nice to see you in chat. He'll point to something weird in that's going on in the story, and then everyone will go, "Oh yes, that is weird," but then they'll just move on. they won't like deal with what's going on and why it's weird. They'll just be like, oh yes, this is weird, just leave it. So it's not really like, it deconstructs some things, but it's not deconstructing the things that it points out are weird. So I don't know, something like I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but I don't know, something like how nobody moves out of the town. It might be like, oh, maybe people should move out of this town. Oh yeah. So like, it acknowledges tropes within the genre, but doesn't seem to, at this point in the show, overcome those tropes. It just is like content with acknowledging that they're there and then moving on, which I think becomes sort of like, it sort of gets filtered down to that Joss Whedon, like, well, that just happened style of comedy. They got like projected throughout a lot of the Marvel films, where like the people will point to a thing that is absurd and mad, and like, how did that just happen, but not actually deal with it. I think you could sort of see how that tracks through in early Bafandra, which is interesting. The other thing about it is that I fucking hate Xander and Shovelface, whatever he's called, Angel. I hate them. I hate them both. I maybe hate Xander more than I hate the 400-year-old Angel who's trying to date a 16-year-old. Angel's where I'm at right now. Angel is a villain, and that's much better. Fucking shovel-faced villain, much nicer. Can deal with it. He's a prick. Whatever. Wiley was a good guy, moping around all glum and shovel-faced, and like moping after a 16-year-old girl. I was like, fuck, this is bad. This sucks, man. I don't like any of this. I don't like how the Giles is letting it happen. It's like, oh, he's a good vampire. He's 400 years old, Giles. She's 16. We need to put a stop to this. Safeguarding. She's a child. Safeguarding the child by not letting her date the 400-year-old shovel-faced fucking boring vampire man. And also Xander's a horrible little creep as well, who's clearly a self-insert for Joss Whedon. Horrible little creep. I hate Xander. And what's her face? Cordelia is way out of his league. Way out of his league. That's my. These are my. Have I met Spike yet? I have met Spike yet. And Spike is great. I love Spike. Spike's fantastic. Spike, mainly because Spike calls fucking Shovelface Shovelface, and apparently I started calling Angel Shovelface, and then Spike came on screen and like called him Shovelface, and I was just like, it's right there. How did we meld like that? Anticipating the shovel face. It's because he has a shovel face. I like Spike. Spike immediately made the show better. Like I was the first the first series we watched like the first and last episodes because it was apparently not very good. So we just started first and last episodes of the first series, and then we went on to the second series. And I was still unsure. I didn't think it was great. As soon as Spike and Drusilla appeared, elevated the show immediately. Suddenly it was interesting. They killed the horrible little fucking child. Hated that child. Killed him. Good. Out. And then you get fun little Drusilla. I love Drusilla as well. I love how weird she is. Very much a fan of both Spike and Drusilla. Although the period where Spike is out of action and kind of mopey, waste of Spike, in my view. We've just reached the point where he's getting back into the action, which I'm very glad to see because he is just the best character. Aside from Cordelia. Cordelia is also good. Um, Xander's the worst. I hate Xander. Every time Xander's having a bad time, I'm like, yes, I'm enjoying this. Xander's utility for me is that he has a bad time, and I enjoy that. I get a sort of warm sense of justice to this creepy little bastard. Is getting a bad time, which is probably not a good part of me, but fuck Xander. He's terrible and he's fictional. Seth Green's character, yeah, he's not been in much so far, what I've seen, but I like Oz. Oz is good. He seems sound, and I'm glad that there's a sound male character, because Spike is charismatic, but he's clearly also awful. It's good that there's Oz there. Oz to be good. Yeah, what was Whedon's doing? He chose to do the dirty on Spike in terms of like getting him out of the show or whatever. I don't really know. Hello, Critical Revolt. How are you? We're just talking about Buffy or Buffandra. Sorry, the Vampire Slayer. I do enjoy. I enjoy Oz. Let's get another tune going, and then we can continue talking about Buffandra the Vampire Slayer because I'm enjoying it. Punko, how's it going? Welcome to the stream. Someone was asking, what Joss Whedon did. Yeah, Joss Whedon's a horrible sex pest. On just Befandra itself, he wrote off a character after abusing her for years, and the reason finally that he wrote her off, it was the person who played Cordelia, for not losing enough weight after being pregnant. He's a real piece of shit. Like a horrible abusive bastard. And some of that comes through in the writing of. So the character of Xander is clearly a self-insert for Joss Whedon, and it's just creepy. That's one of the reasons why I hate it. Why I hate Xander as a character. One, because he's terrible, just as a character. Horrible bastard. But also like clearly a self-insert for Joss Whedon to get out a whole load of misogynistic things that he thinks through this character's dialogue. Not a good person. Turns out that the man who was the head of geek culture for a while is a piece of shit. Who would have thought that there's misogynists in the geek community? Who could have seen this wild reveal coming? Well, the women maybe. Aside from them, who could have seen such a thing coming? Thanks for popping in. Always nice to have people in stream. I always enjoy these streams. Pinko Bunko, we were just talking about I've started watching Befandra, the vampire Slafandra. Just talk about why I hate some of the characters. I like to find political reasons why I dislike things. It makes me feel more legitimate in my unwarranted hatred of things. Being a hater is all well and good, but you've got to have a political reason for it. Anything else going on? We've covered the big discourses, haven't we? I'm glad people enjoy the streams. I enjoy doing them. Started out as a hater, then developed politics to keep the lifestyle going. Exactly. You got to keep that hater impulse in check, though. You can't let it run rampant. Part of what the politics does is keeps the hating in check. So you're not just like being a sort of dick who hates everything. There's some things which are great. Everything everywhere all at once, great. No matter what people on Twitter say. You need to keep the hatred in check. But when you do find something you hate, it's important to be dedicated. None of this half measures. Oh, I just don't like. No, I hate this, and here's why. Here's a detailed reason why this thing sucks, and it's probably anti-communist. That the whole premise of the Wednesday Addams video was like, I hated this. I hated this show because it didn't understand the Addams family, and then also being like, and it's also anti-communist. Yeah, exactly. Structural analysis also helps you not to become a misanthrope, just an anti-capitalist. Yeah, you know, you can still have some hope, some positivity, some good vibes. We get some good vibes here, even amongst some of the dedicated haterness. I've become very aware since my friend told me that he likes to tune in at the beginning and end of streams to check on how I'm coping with a bottle of wine. Every time I stumble over a word, I'll be like, oh, fuck, man, he's got me there. If he checks this late in the stream, he's got me. It feels classy hanging out while you drink wine. Well, I'm glad you think it's classy. Rarely do I ever feel classy drinking my £5.50 bottle of wine on my bed on a Thursday evening. Rarely do I feel classy. To be honest, let's talk about this. This is an interesting thing. I don't know if I've talked about this before on stream. The sort of legacies of the strange British... yeah, I'm going to phrase it like that, exactly. The strange British class politics. So, I'm very much I grew up very firmly middle class. I'm not from a working class household. But both my parents are, and the legacy of the attitudes that they passed down on me is interesting. I feel unwelcome and I don't belong in posh or classy places. I'm not allowed in there. And I've noticed this sometimes if I'm out with people and they're like, why don't we go into this place? And I'm like, we're not allowed to go in there. We're not, this is not a place for us. Why should we go into somewhere like that? It's got white tablecloths. How are they going to serve the spaghetti? If there's a white tablecloth, you might spill some. And it's an interesting inheritance of the attitudes that particularly I think my dad's side of the family passed down. So my granny on my dad's side had a phrase of saying we don't belong here, we're just dirt, telling my dad that. And I feel like it's been passed on through the generations to a sense of not belonging in places. And I feel like there's some people who if their parents have been the brief blip of social mobility in Britain when suddenly people could go from working class to wealthy. Some of those children of those people went to private schools, and they belong everywhere. They've never had any issue belonging places. I didn't go to a private school, and I think that might be one of the reasons why the sort of class dynamic has been passed on to this to me and my brothers and my sister, our sort of side of the family, where other contemporaries of my parents, children who went to private school, have no issue going to fancy restaurants. As if I could afford going to a fancy restaurant at this point. But on the odd occasion in the last 10 years when I've been to one, you just feel like you shouldn't be there. Yeah, it feels so uncomfortable. There's a feeling, and I felt this when I was going through Canary Wharf a few weeks ago. The big Patreon bucks, exactly. I'm on track to make almost taxable income. Yeah. Soon we'll be up to £6 bottles of wine. Yeah. I went to what's it called? Canary Wharf, just to go to the post office, because it was the closest post office to where I was that returned Amazon packages, and the whole time just felt like I wasn't allowed to be there. Any second someone would chuck me, oh hello Trudy, how's it going? Welcome to hearing me chat shit. It's been too long, Trudy. Yeah, the whole time felt like it didn't belong. They're about to chuck you out. They're about to catch on that you're not supposed to be there. Yeah, Kel Rooney. Sorry, I'm really sorry if I'm not pronouncing your name correctly. So, let's tell this story. A few weeks ago, I was at an event in my university's department. Good pronunciation. Okay, cool. Was at an event in my department where suddenly My university is very strange. It's like a small institution, and it doesn't have all that many undergrads. It doesn't have many like active lecturers. It has a lot of professor emeritus, lots of like research fellows and things like that. But I turned up to this event, and like out the woodwork, all these ancient men appeared, like people who spoke in a way that, like, if I wasn't trying, I wouldn't be able to understand. Like, oh yeah, I was trying very hard. Like, I overheard two of them saying, "Oh yes, this was an old thing that lots of the Marxians back in the day." And it's like, what kind of person are you? Like, I get like, at this event, aside from my supervisor, I was maybe only one of like 4 people who were under the age of like 70, and at one point someone started speaking, and they mentioned, they were like, this must be a holdover from going to boarding school. And I was like, oh, okay, this is the place we're in, where folk are going to boarding school. Wow. I don't know if I've ever met, like, I've maybe met one other person consciously who I know went to boarding school, and it's just wild that this is like this person. Oh, this must be a holdover from boarding school, and then everyone in the room went, quite. And I was like, wow. I am a very different type of person to this. Despite my relatively privileged upbringing, to be in a room where even my very relatively privileged upbringing was the dirt compared to these people is a very strange feeling. And me and my supervisor were just chatting. We were just there for the free wine. And this guy came up to us. He came up to my supervisor and he was like, "Oh, hello. We used to be great friends back in the day. When you were living in a house in Hampstead, and my wife and your wife were both into ballet." Yes. And my supervisor was like very politely like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then he was like, "I'm just gonna get another drink, John." And alright, see you later, Pinko Punko. And this guy, and I was left chatting to this guy, and you know when you just become aware that you have no value to someone. This person was talking to me, and he obviously thought it was like a research fellow at first. And he was like, "Oh, what's a PhD? What are you doing? Sort of thing. And what's your research interest? What projects you're involved in?" I was like, "Oh, I'm just finishing up a PhD in this topic." And as soon as he learned I wasn't a research fellow but was just a PhD, I was nothing. I might as well have been a fucking bug. He just glazed over, and I was like talking about my research and like, yeah, looking at the ways that social movements use human rights in this particular context, finding that joining a bunch of like Marxian thought and insights from social reproduction theory, completely glazed over. And then then within minutes he was like, "Well, I've got to go," blah, 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 and just walked away. And I walked up to my supervisor afterwards, and my supervisor turned to me. This guy had been insisting that he knew him, and he lived next door to him, and their wives were friends. My supervisor was just like, "I've never met that man before in my life. He obviously thought I was someone else. I've never had the money to buy a house in Hampstead. My wife doesn't do ballet. I don't know what the fuck he's talking about." It was such like a crystallizing moment of a certain type of academia that these old red men were just so confident that they could carry full conversations with a person who had no idea who they were. And then just to ignore someone that they thought that had no worth to them. I think that aside from my supervisor, I was maybe the only person in that room who didn't go to private school. Maybe the only one who didn't go to a boarding school, which is fucking insane. That's like wild. That was quite an experience. Quite an experience. Academia's not great. It's not a great place. What was quite funny about that as well, so my university, School of Advanced Study, the institute that I'm part of, which is like a department but more independent, is called the Institute of Commonwealth Studies. Now, that's somewhat archaic, I think anyone would agree. The only reason I'm there is because my supervisor does work in post-colonial research, basically, or at least did work, and it's part of like a human rights consortium that joins together certain departments. It's like an accident that I'm kind of there. And when I was talking to some of these ancient ones, and they were asking about where my research was focused, I'd say the UK, because, and then I'd explain the reason I'm in this department. I don't have a focus on post-colonialism or the Commonwealth, whatever that actually means these days. And every single one of them, without fail, every single one of them said to me, well, you know, the UK is part of the Commonwealth. And I think, is the UK part of the Commonwealth? Is that how we're framing that? That the UK is part of the Commonwealth? Are we sure in this room of white men who are all 90% over 60, we want to carry on with the sentence, the UK, of course the UK is part of the Commonwealth? I'm not sure you have thought that through. And a few of them kept saying things like, we need to, and I'm not sure about this, but they kept saying things like, we need to ensure the relevance of the Commonwealth. Now, what they could have meant is they need to ensure the relevance of the Institute of Commonwealth Studies, because it was almost closed a couple of years ago, which was scary for me, because what would I have done? So they could have meant we need to ensure the relevance of the Institute of Commonwealth Studies. My advice for that would be to rename it and refocus it on something else. Or alternatively, and I suspect this is what they meant, they need to ensure the relevance of the Commonwealth as an institution. I don't think we do. I think we can let that one go, guys. I think we can let that one go. We can let that one go, I think. The relevance of the Commonwealth is done. And it is, if that is what they meant, it is a massive indictment of that department. Well, you know what? It's not. That's maybe not fair, because these are the aged professor emeritus's who don't really do much. It's an indictment of the type of person who has institutional power in the institute if they think that we need to ensure the relevance of the Commonwealth. And if they'd asked me, John, how do we ensure the relevance of the Commonwealth? I'd say, burn it down. We could burn it down. That could be an option. It be in the news for a few weeks. You could say, the Commonwealth is relevant today because it's burning down and everyone's leaving. This old vestige of empire, which is dead and should hold no political authority, is now burning down. And that's what I would say. I'm not sure many people in that room would have agreed with me. My supervisor would have, because he is sound. But there certainly would have been people who were like, "Oh no, it's an institution. It's part of the institution. Of course, we don't like empire, but the Commonwealth is an institution. Some institutions need to burn. Some institutions need to burn." So yeah, that was weird. That was a weird. It was a weird day as well, because that was the day I actually submitted my draft to my supervisor. And it was a day that I actually, the first time I met some of my colleagues and like the work stuff that I do, who are very nice as well, and very much not in that sort of old man imperial. They all dressed the same, like they were all like beige jackets, beige trousers. Like, who decides this is how these type of do you get handed a uniform? And it's the same with like American frat guys. They all get handed this very similar uniform. That's the legacy of the Commonwealth, that these that frat guys and these old fucks dress the same. That's Commonwealth stuff. America may not be part of the Commonwealth, but that's the legacy of the Commonwealth. And I think if you want to remain relevant, maybe you should point to that fucking fashion sense between frat guys and the old fucks. Dress the same, talk the same, think the same. Exactly. I would do an anthropological experiment, to analyze these types of people. I'm sure some of them are perfectly lovely, and like a personal sense, but it's just like, it's so fascinating. They all appeared, not the frat boy, says Trudy. It's fascinating that they all just appeared out the woodwork, and they all have the same voice and think and talk the same, and all said the same thing about the UK being part of the Commonwealth. It's a sentence which is just astounding to me, as the UK is part of the Commonwealth. I'm just sitting here like, the UK is part of the Imperial Core. Part of the Commonwealth. So yeah, that was fascinating. But we got some free wine. And then my supervisor took me out for dinner, which was nice. So it was quite a nice day. And we had quite a good time at the party. At the event, just chatting. There was this one poor new research fellow at the institute who early on in the event came up to me and was like, what are you doing here? And I thought it was someone like, because the only reason I was invited is because I'm a low level. Nice to see you, Trudy. We should talk again soon. We need to figure out that Zoom call. We were talking about that a while ago. I thought that she was asking me like why I'm there, because I'm like a low-level admin assistant in like one of the departments, and that's why I was there, more than like the PhD stuff. So I was like, oh yeah, I'm doing admin for this project. And she was like, oh yeah, I only ask because you're the only one here who looks young. And I was like, I'm not that young, but like I appreciate you saying so. And turned out she'd just moved to the institute, and the understanding that it was like an interesting and like wide-ranging university that had lots of interesting people, and not realizing that it was this weird siloed holding place for ancient men, and was just like, what the fuck have I done coming here? She was from Germany, I think. I was like, just like, what the fuck? I've not met anyone yet, and now this is the first thing I've been to, and everyone is in their 60s. What the fuck have I done? And me and my supervisor were just like, oh, you poor woman. Let's chat. Let's chat. We'll keep you. We'll keep you from having to talk to any of the aged ones. Yeah, that was funny. Yeah, it is interesting the odd class dynamics at play in these sort of spaces. It's not just in the university as well. Like, I've spoken about this before, but one of the first left-wing spaces I ever went to in London, during like the time I was there, it was just like in a pub. We're all young. I appreciate it. It was just in a pub with a bunch of like London left-wing folk in a particular scene, and I became very acutely aware that I was the only one there who didn't go to private school or to Oxbridge. And that was another sort of, everyone started talking about like their shared experiences in private schools and in Oxbridge, and I was just like, fucking hell, I cannot relate to these people. What a strange situation. Yeah, it was a bit of an oof. I'm not gonna lie, it was a wee bit of an oof. And again, like, by no means am I from a particularly like I'm from a very middle class family. But to be the only one there that didn't go to private school in Oxbridge was like, if I was the least posh person, if I'm the least posh person in a room, you fucked up. Like, you fucked up. And that was bad. That was bad and weird. I didn't practice my German. The poor woman had gone through enough with realizing where she was, that she didn't need an amateur German practicer speaking at her. Oh, the same. Let me see. Minihood, absolutely the same. Anytime I talk to someone who goes to Oxbridge, I actually I'm gonna change up the music and then I'm gonna talk about this. bit who. I'm not sure. Again, not feeling. I'm not feeling the vibes tonight that I'm making. But we'll see how it goes. People didn't get the. I'm sorry they didn't get the notification. I think it's been a more empty stream than normal today, so I wonder if folk didn't get the notification or something. Usually we've got a good 10 more folk on, but glad you're here now. We probably won't hang around for too much. Well, I've still got a little bit of wine to go, so we'll be here for a little bit. So what I was going to talk about before putting on this weird Who style tune, was so talking to people about their experiences in Oxbridge. 'Cause it's strange. It seemed like talking to people. It doesn't seem like. Didn't get a notification with first thing on the feed. Yeah, that makes sense. So I talk to people friends or people I know who went to Oxbridge, and the stories that they tell from that place are just horrendous. Like, it just does not seem like a fun place to be. Like, that there's no Freshers Week. That like what someone I know told me that in their induction they were told that they would have friends who went to other universities who'd be posting sharing photos and stories about their Freshers Week, but they wouldn't get that, and it's all part of this notion of you're here to do they still drank, they still had some degree of fun, but all with this horrendous atmosphere of needing to constantly be working and not falling behind and competing with other people. It's not that long ago that they stopped. They used, even when folk are in their early 20s who I know who went to Oxbridge, it's only very recently that they stopped posting grades on the doors of colleges, which is that's just fucked up, man. That's just fucked up. And people talk to me about it, and they're oh, this is it really had deleterious effects on their mental health, and produced really bad. It just seems like not a good place. But there's still a notion, and this isn't just from folk who went there. There's still a notion that this environment produces a better education than another university that's not within that field, and it's really strange. I've met people who believe that because they went to Oxbridge, they received a better education than people around. I met people who are I think it's wrong. I think Oxbridge is wrong. I went there and I think it's wrong, but we still received a better education. And unpacking that statement is so weird, because a grand jury is voted to indict Donald Trump. Oh, well, that's fun. We can talk about that in just a second, once I'm done musing on class and education in Britain. There's this weird thing that even though the place is bad and produces massive mental health catastrophes and produces inequalities, that it still is a better education than going to another university. And it seems to be built off of a really narrow assumption of pedagogy, that learning in this particular way is superior. And that includes not developing as a person, because you're in this very specific environment. You're developing as a specific kind of person. And it's just really strange, and it's quite upsetting to me when I hear people talk about it. And you hear the same thing from private schools as well. People I know who went to private school are like, yeah, I wish private schools didn't exist, but we did receive a really good education there, probably better than the would have at state schools. And I'm just like, what do you think that means? And if you're on the left, if you're ostensibly a left-wing person, how do you think that feels to someone who didn't go to a private school? What are you holding on to, that you hold on to this kind of belief that it's a better education? I think the furthest I would go with that is that it's a particular kind of education which is suited to a very specific kind of social movement. Like, I don't mean social movement as in BLM. I mean like the movement through society. It's suited to a very kind of social movement within particular upper echelons of society, which teaches you how to interact with people and talk to people who are of a particular class. But I don't think it's a better education. And I think that we should burn all of them down. I like collecting a bunch of actionable threats on my YouTube live streams. Today, we're saying burn down private schools in Oxbridge. In terms of student-teacher ratios, I'm sure they had it better, but I still don't think that the particular forms of actual pedagogy are better in those institutions. I think that they're still holding on to a very outdated mode of pedagogy. And that is reflected in the high degrees of mental health issues that these institutions produce. And I think it's also reflected in... I meet people who went to these institutions, and they received a kind of education, and this is why I'm not sure they're funded properly. They get access to things, but the funds only go so far. You can fund something very well, but if the institution pushes you into a particular direction, into a particular kind of learning, which is consistent with a very bourgeois mode of being, then all the funding in the world is just going to reproduce that being and isn't going to necessarily produce a better education. I find the assumption that it does really, it separates a notion of education from the actual person, and from the wider society as a whole, and I just don't find it convincing. I find it quite offensive a lot of the time. I don't consider my education at state school or at a non-Oxbridge university to be worse than private schools or Oxbridge, and in many ways I consider it to be better, partly because of the wider variety of people that are around, and the fact that you're not just being trained for a very specific kind of movement through society. Yeah. Teachers are happier, that's a possibility. I would have to see some from my knowledge of teachers and things. There is a difference, but you're better paid. I don't know if you're happier, because I know of a few teachers who used to teach in private schools who left private schools because they hated it so much, because of one, the parents. The parents are worse in general, but also the just the general vibe of it. The kids are also have a different vibe. Like, I know of teachers who've been like, yeah, I taught at posh schools, and the kids are so much worse at the posh schools than they are at the harder schools. Because they like treat you like you're lesser than them in a very, like, students will pupils will treat you like you're shit no matter where you are. But there's a very specific way in which a posh kid who's been trained to think of themselves as the best looks down on a teacher, which some of them find, which I know some teachers have found very difficult to deal with. Understandably, I would not be good at dealing with that. I might call one of them a cunt. Yeah. I do find a lot of that stuff quite challenging to deal with. And I would never accept someone tell me that because they went to one of those institutions they had a better education than me. Or that they had a better education than anyone. I think that would be a massively regressive way of looking at things. But yeah, so Trump got indicted. That's fun. That's gonna be fun. I enjoy a bit of popping off. Sorry, just down that wine. Final point on that. I know quite a lot of teachers who view those who move to the private sector to teach as being traitors and getting no respect from general state school teachers. Like, if you go to a private school, fuck you. You're a disgrace to the profession. I know quite a few who talk like that. Processing in New York, now that a grand jury has voted to indict him in connection with his role of the hush money payments to a porn star. Well, that's fun. Have I heard of Kilgarston Girlston in Perthshire? I got offered a scholarship at because my aptitude towards science didn't take the offer up. No, I've not heard of that. I've heard of the ones in the west side, the big posh private school out in Ayrshire. I think that's the one I've heard of. Not heard the one in Perthshire. Oh, you were talking about Ricky. You were talking about the what are they called, the on the Montessori schools. I don't know much about the Montessori schools, except that they consistently, anytime I have ever met someone who went there, they are one, extremely evangelical about it, and two, deeply weird. Which is always very funny. I had a really weird experience. So last year at the proms, managed to wrangle some free tickets to see the BBC proms, but there was a mix-up. And the place where we got free tickets for was somehow already booked. So these older women in the box next to where we got these tickets were just like, yeah, come on in, join us. And we walked in, they had this buffet of the smelliest food that you could ever imagine, both extremely posh. The first thing that one of them said to me was, I'm sorry, I can't understand your Scotch accent. And I was like, all right, here we go. This is where we're going. And And so we went into this thing. We watched the proms. It was very nice. Halfway through, during the intermission, we started chatting to the women, and one of them started talking about like a bunch of anti-vax conspiracy theories, and I was like, oh fuck, and just like chatting away. And then the other one started talking to me and was like, oh yes, I went to a Montessori school, and we don't have a television, we don't have any of this new technology in our house. We just read books, and we make sure. I never let my grandchildren watch television or have mobile phones. And I was like, okay, we're 2 for 2 on some strangeness. Let's see where this goes. Next question they asked was what I think of Scottish independence, because that's the first question anyone who's English asks anyone who's Scottish. And I just spoke about that, and it was fine. We ate some of their smelly food. It was lovely. We went back to the concert. At the end of the concert, this lady who was talking about anti-vax conspiracies gives me a big hug and whispered in my ear, don't let the new rulers of the world get into your brain. And I was like, okay. It was bizarre. But yeah, so anytime I think of that, I just think of those two strange older women. Ricky's saying, I'm also American, so private schools here are a direct result of racist parents pulling their kids out of integration and wants to keep their kids in an all-white environment. Yeah. I mean, it's not too different, I guess. The public is less direct, like parents pulling themselves out of integration, and more just like a long history of colonial racism. That's produced a certain type of private school in the UK. A lot of it as well, especially in Scotland, is built on the sectarianism. The Catholic schools only exist because of the sectarianism towards Catholics, not allowing them in state schools, which is, another bit of fun misery to add to Scotland. My partner went to a Montessori school, and I confirmed they are odd, but in a much better way. I mean, I'm good with things being odd. You're probably a much more normal person if you go to a Montessori school than if you go to your bog standard private school. We've pulled the last of the remnants of the wine. Let's get the last tune on the go. And Katie, I can't play heavy metal. I'm sorry. I don't know how. At least in Scotland you can have pride you're not English. I have varying opinions on that. I sometimes think that we in Scotland do our best. The distancing of ourselves from being English does a lot of work for distancing ourselves from the worst aspects of Englishness, of which there are many, which are also present in Scottishness, to be honest. The thing we don't have, we're less annoying than the English, and I'll give us that. Politically, we're basically the same, but we're less annoying. This is the last of the wine for the night, so if anyone's got any burning questions, any desires they'd like to discuss before we finish for the night, we have Scottish people are slightly nicer. I don't know, man. We've got until the end of this wine before we finish. Yeah, you have a desire to know how to keep wine cold without diluting it. Let me have a think. There is this technique I have heard of that keeps wine cool without diluting it. I don't know if anyone's heard of this, but if you freeze grapes and you put it in your wine, it actually keeps it cold. And when the grapes unfreeze, unlike ice, they don't melt, so they don't dilute the wine. So you can actually put frozen grapes in your wine to keep it cool. Can you read my master's dissertation? I'm not even sure where my master's dissertation is. It's not very good. What I will be doing is, as soon as my Viva is done, I will be posting the full text of my PhD on Patreon for anyone to read. So that someone needs to make a frozen grapes regard. That's gonna be depressing. But yeah, so I'll be putting that fully on the full doctoral thesis will be put on Patreon for anyone to read. I might look out my master's thesis. I also don't think my master's dissertation was very good. Unfortunately. So I'm not sure. I if I find it, I will take a look, and I might post it. But it's not very good. Might be a million. No, I mean it might be, but it's just. I will have it somewhere, but it's not very good. You won't want to read it. Part of the reason for the PhD was because I was unhappy with the quality of my master's dissertation. Yours is passed around thesis writing classes. I mean, that's good. You get some thesis writing classes, like, as long as you're not the example that's bad, then that's nice. Yeah, I suspect my master's dissertation has very little value. A friend of mine's little brother, I did send it to him because he wanted to read about the very specific topic it was, and I sent it to him. It's not very good though. You want to read it? I mean, like the PhD. In the coming months, the PhD will be available. 94,000 words of basically the content of the channel, but more specifically, like very much more specifically on the human rights stuff is more accentuated in the PhD than a lot of the stuff now in the channel, which is partly reflected on my interests expanding since I started the PhD beyond any human rights stuff. To be honest, likely the PhD and any papers that are produced from it are the last research I'll do on human rights. I'm not sure. I think the work I've done is good, but I'm not sure how much more I can give of value to this specific topic of human rights. I will be interested to hear. Hiya, Kian, how's it going? What's the next video? The next video is going to be on transphobia and the far right. Kian, I might actually send you that script because there's some stuff on fascism in there that might be good for you to take a look at before I film it. I might send you that after this stream. Yeah, that's what the next video's on. I was planning to film it tomorrow. But I'm also going to do a video on the sort of PhD thesis, which does speak to human rights. One of the most annoying things about this site is that the most viewed video on human rights on a left-wing YouTube sphere is really bad. So I will try and do a one that's better. The basic thrust of the thesis, for those who are interested, is that while human rights have often been conceptualized only in their institutional expression through law, through the NGOs, the way in which they're used by social movements, particularly in the social reproductive sphere, and housing, disability rights, GRT rights, land rights, in all those spheres, water as well, has been particularly effective in challenging a specific form of neoliberal commodification, which is the commodification of social reproductive goods. So, one of the central features of neoliberalism is that it has been privatizing and exporting social reproduction onto individuals and into the market. And a lot of human rights campaigns have been specifically challenging that commodification, which has massive implications for challenging the specific kinds of social relations which are being reaccumulated in the neoliberal age. So opposed to views like the terrible video that's on YouTube that human rights are necessarily bourgeois, necessarily individualistic, and necessarily neoliberal, my research indicates that in the particular ways in which people use them in the social reproductive sphere to challenge this commodification, human rights campaigns can get to the very heart of challenging neoliberalism. Campaigns in this specific way, in this specific tool. And that's contrary to a lot of Marxist thinking on this topic. And I have significant evidence to back that up within the paper and whenever I write the video on it. And it's interesting to me that when it comes to human rights, people have a very left-wing folk, Marxists, have a very singular, undialectic view of them. They view them as only this thing given by elite institutions. They seem to reduce the agency of those working class social movements who take that language and reverse it and use it for their own ends. which is interesting to me. It indicates a lack of proper dialectical thinking in the realm of social movements within certain Marxist spheres. And especially related to so-called, like, the people who have problems with identity politics seem to also have the same block, where people are generating social movements against capital. I think that's interesting. I think that's more of the route I'm going to go down in future research about a lack of engagement within actual social movements on the ground from Marxist thinkers. And I think part of that is because a lot of Marxist thought is produced in the academy, and the academy is distant from the social movements that they purport to study and represent. Thoughts on Hamza winning? So we talked about this a bit earlier. Basically, I think it's a relief. I think the strongest I feel about it is that it's a relief. I am worried about the direction Scottish politics will go. I think that we're about to see a bunch of racism be unleashed in Scotland that a lot of Scottish people have been reticent to acknowledge, basically. But I'm glad that Kate Forbes didn't win, because that would have been fucking horrendous. That would have been so bad. So I'm glad on that. Alright, that was the last of the wine. So, Kian, by the way, are you planning to come up to London next weekend? Come up to London next weekend. We're having a party. You should come. So if unless anyone else has got some burning questions or desires to speak about, we'll start drawing this stream to an end. If anyone, but I'll leave it for a couple of minutes so anyone can get their last burning questions out. Thanks for popping by, everyone. I always enjoy a nice wee stream. Again, next video should be out maybe next Thursday. Thursday's a good day for videos to come out. Excuse me. You'll be in Australia. Well. Can't believe you're fucking off to Australia to do a PhD with a famous academic instead of coming to a party. How dare you? Bad desire to meet me. Nice vibes. Yeah, we like the vibes. It's been a nice stream. So yeah, hopefully next Thursday we will have another video, and then 2 weeks today we should have another stream to talk about that video. And yeah, thanks for coming along. I will draw this to a close now.